There's a moment in every great journey when the dreamer is called delusional. Not because their idea is flawed, not because their ambition is misdirected, but because their vision outpaces the understanding of those around them. And in that moment, the world labels them unrealistic, obsessed, strange, even crazy. They'll ask, why are you working so hard for something no one else can see? They'll laugh at the hours you put in, the sacrifices you make, the standards you hold. And if you're not careful, you'll start to believe them. You'll shrink your vision to match their comfort. You'll dull your fire to make others feel warm. But listen closely. If your vision doesn't make someone uncomfortable, it's probably not big enough. The road to wealth, to independence, to greatness is lined with the echoes of doubt from those who stopped walking. But you must keep walking, because eventually the same people who once called you crazy will ask how you did it. They'll call you crazy for saying no to temporary pleasures in pursuit of permanent freedom. They'll call you crazy for turning down a weekend of distractions to study, plan, or build. They'll call you crazy for believing in something they've never seen, for investing time into something that hasn't paid you yet, for speaking about goals as if they're already real. But what they don't understand is that you are not building your life based on where you are. You're building it based on where you're going. And where you're going requires a new way of thinking, a new level of sacrifice, a new kind of discipline. Most people chase money as a reaction. You're building wealth by design. Most people hope to retire someday. You're engineering freedom now. Most people talk about what they want. You're becoming what you want. And that difference, that bold, uncommon difference, is what makes you dangerous to their comfort. Let me tell you something important. Every wealthy man or woman was first misunderstood. Their schedule didn't make sense. Their decisions were questioned. Their mindset seemed extreme. But what the world called obsession was actually alignment. What the world mocked as overwork was actually discipline. What others labeled as selfish was simply focused. And the irony is, the more successful you become, the more the story changes. Suddenly, your so-called craziness becomes courage. Your detachment becomes wisdom. Your refusal to settle becomes strength. But you must endure the season before the recognition. You must walk through the fog of ridicule, the silence of being ignored, and the weight of being doubted. That is the price. But it is not a punishment. It's a filter. It's how life separates the interested from the committed, the casual from the determined, the wanderers from the warriors. You see, true wealth is not built in public. It is forged in private. It is developed in quiet mornings, in disciplined evenings, in long periods of being unseen. While the world is busy seeking validation, the future wealthy are seeking mastery. While others measure progress in applause, they measure it in alignment. They are reading while others are scrolling. They are creating while others are consuming. They are building while others are busy being entertained. And yes, it looks strange. Yes, it appears unbalanced, but that imbalance is strategic. That unrelenting focus is intentional. Because the truth is, every extraordinary life demands an extraordinary level of commitment. You don't become free by accident. You don't become rich by luck. You do it by design, by dedication, and by becoming someone the average person can't recognize. Write this down if you're serious. The more committed you become, the more isolated you may feel. Not because you're doing something wrong, but because you're doing something rare. And the rare is always rejected before it's respected. That's the cycle. That's the pattern. That's the test. People will leave. Some will mock. Some will distance themselves because your growth confronts their comfort. But don't dim your light to keep others from squinting. Don't break your rhythm to match someone else's noise, because your job is not to be understood by the masses. Your job is to become the kind of person who no longer needs their approval. And that happens when your self-respect becomes louder than their doubt. When your discipline drowns out their judgment. When your purpose is so rooted that you no longer bend for opinions, you only bow to principle. Let's go deeper. Wealth is not a number. It's an identity. It's who you become long before you receive the external reward. It's the mindset of the person who thinks long-term while others think next weekend. It's the behavior of the person who lives below their means today so they can live far beyond them tomorrow. It's the character of the person who says no to shortcuts, no to distractions, no to mediocrity, not because they enjoy deprivation, but because they are loyal to the future they're building. This loyalty to vision, to value, to principles is what separates those who wish from those who win. Because the truth is, life will give you what you settle for. And most people settle for being liked instead of being respected, for being understood instead of being unmatched. But the one destined for wealth makes a different choice. They choose legacy over likes, results over recognition, freedom over fitting in. There's something else you need to understand. The label of crazy is often just the sound of the majority projecting their limitations onto you. It's not truth, it's fear. When someone tells you your dream is too big, what they're really saying is, I gave up on mine. When they say you're working too hard, they're really saying your discipline reminds me of my excuses. When they call you selfish for focusing, what they mean is, I wish I had your clarity. And once you see that, you stop taking it personally. You stop shrinking to make others feel tall. You stop explaining yourself to people who've never done what you're doing. And instead you build, quietly, relentlessly, without needing applause or understanding. Because your results will speak for you. And when they do, the silence will become curiosity. The judgment will become admiration. And the phrase they once used to mock you, you're crazy, will turn into, how did you do it? But here's the final piece. You must be willing to be the only one who believes in your vision for a while. That is the final test. Can you walk alone in the fog of uncertainty? Can you build with no reassurance? Can you invest without guarantee? Because if you can hold the line when it's thankless, stay focused when it's lonely, and remain consistent when it's invisible, then you are exactly the kind of person wealth was built for. Not the lucky, not the chosen, but the committed, the self-directed, the internally fortified. These are the people who go on to lead, to change generations, to live lives of quiet power and undeniable freedom. And their story always begins the same way. They called me crazy until I got rich. If you want to understand what separates the rich from the rest, don't look at their bank accounts. Look at their decisions when no one is watching. Wealth is not some event that happens one day. It's not a miracle. It's not an inheritance for the chosen few. Wealth is built in the quiet, invisible hours, the hours most people waste. It's built by those who show up to their vision when it's not convenient, who protect their habits when no one is clapping, who follow their systems even when doubt knocks at the door. And if you study anyone who's built real wealth, earned, multiplied, sustained, you'll find a pattern. They were all ridiculed at the beginning, not because they were wrong, but because they were early. They believed before there was proof. They acted before they were supported. They planted seeds others couldn't even see. And while the world laughed, they watered. And when the harvest came, no one was laughing anymore. They'll call you crazy when you start waking up earlier than everyone you know, not for a job but for your dream. They'll call you crazy when you stop spending like everyone else and start investing instead. They'll question your standards, mock your discipline, and tell you you've changed. But of course you've changed. You had to. The life you're building doesn't exist within your old self. And that change, though it may cost you popularity, pays you back with freedom. Because the truth is, most people are not living, they're maintaining. Maintaining bills, maintaining distractions, maintaining opinions. But the wealthy, the builders, the ones who are called crazy, they're not maintaining, they're multiplying. Every minute, every dollar, every ounce of energy is an investment. And over time, those investments turn into something permanent. Wealth that is earned, not given. Identity that is built, not borrowed. A life that is owned, not rented. Now, let's talk about vision. You see, when you carry a real vision, you begin to act differently. You don't waste time proving your worth, you spend time increasing it. You don't beg for approval, you build so much proof that approval becomes irrelevant, and you stop needing to explain yourself because you realize that small minds will never understand big plans. Vision is a filter. It reveals who belongs in your life and who is just visiting. It sharpens your instincts, trains your attention, and guides your decisions. The person destined for wealth moves with vision like a compass, quiet, internal, unshakable. And while others chase validation, they chase the next level. That's the difference. One is playing for applause, the other is playing for legacy. And legacy is only built by those willing to walk alone long enough for the world to catch up. Write this down. Your ability to tolerate misunderstanding determines the level of success you'll reach. If you need to be understood at all times, you will never rise beyond the opinions of others. But if you can endure being misjudged, misread, underestimated, you unlock a new kind of freedom. Because once you no longer need the world's approval, you're free to build at a level the world won't even see coming. And when they do see it, when the results show up, when the lifestyle begins to reflect the discipline they once mocked, they'll act like they always believed in you. That's how it works. But by then you won't need them too, because the rich don't explain, they execute. They don't seek comfort, they seek growth. They don't fear criticism, they outgrow it. And this internal shift is what moves you from the life you were born into to the life you were meant for. There's another principle that few understand, but all wealthy people live by. Time is more valuable than money. The wealthy buy time. The average sell it. That means every moment you spend must be measured against your values. Are you spending time or are you investing it? Are you numbing your potential or sharpening your purpose? You'll know someone's future not by their words, but by their calendar. The successful have hours blocked for building, thinking, strategizing. They don't leave their lives to chance. They architect it. And while others wonder where the time went, they can tell you exactly where every minute went and what it produced. That kind of precision is not extreme. It's required. Because wealth is not about effort alone, it's about intentional effort. Planned, measured, repeated. That is how you multiply time. And the more you multiply time, the more you multiply money. Let's talk about sacrifice. The individual destined for wealth does not see sacrifice as loss. They see it as leverage. Every no they say today is a bigger yes tomorrow. No to short-term pleasure, yes to long-term independence. No to impressing strangers, yes to building equity. No to reacting, yes to designing. This mindset may look rigid from the outside, but from the inside it feels like power. Because there's nothing more powerful than knowing exactly why you're doing what you're doing. While others are pulled in 100 directions by emotion, distraction, and noise, the successful move with calm aggression. They know what they're building, and they're willing to delay the applause, delay the lifestyle, delay the comfort, because they know that real wealth isn't built with speed, it's built with stamina. Another truth about the rich, they master boredom. Yes, boredom. Because the path to wealth is repetitive. It's simple but not easy. It's showing up to the same habits daily. It's managing your emotions when the results haven't arrived. It's trusting the process when motivation fades. Most people want variety. They crave stimulation, but wealth builders, they crave repetition. They crave consistency. They build systems so tight, so structured, so optimized, that it almost looks robotic. But that's the point, automation of excellence. And when the average get tired, they quit. When the rich get tired, they rest strategically. But the process never stops, because the habits don't rely on motivation. They rely on identity. This is what I do becomes this is who I am. And once behavior becomes identity, results become inevitable. Let me tell you what makes this transformation possible. Self-respect. The wealth you're building is not just about money. It's about how much you respect yourself. Enough to follow through. Enough to show up. Enough to honor your word, even when no one else is watching. Self-respect is the engine behind consistency. It's what allows you to rise above your mood, your fatigue, your environment. Because you've raised the standard, you no longer negotiate with weakness. You no longer apologize for your standards. You don't have to scream them, you live them. And over time, the world adjusts. People who once doubted you begin to respect you, not because you tried to convince them, but because your results made it impossible not to. There's a fundamental difference between how the wealthy think and how the average think, and it begins with ownership. The person who eventually becomes rich doesn't blame, doesn't wait, and doesn't explain away their circumstances. They take full, radical, unshakable ownership of every result in their life. If something is off, they fix it. If they lack a skill, they learn it. If their circle isn't aligned, they change it. They don't play the victim because they understand this truth. Victimhood might give you sympathy, but it will never give you freedom. Ownership, on the other hand, gives you options. It gives you leverage. It gives you power. When you say, "This is on me," you also say, "This is within my control." And from that place, the rich begin to separate. Not because they had more, often they had less. But they refused to let circumstance decide their outcome. They chose to respond instead of react. And in that choice, they became untouchable. Most people waste their energy managing perception. The wealthy spend their energy managing their results. There's a deep lesson in that. While the average are trying to look successful, the successful are becoming it. While some chase attention, others chase alignment. While some seek followers, others build systems. And here's what's fascinating. The ones who focused on the internal first eventually gain the external without even chasing it, because value cannot be hidden forever. Sooner or later, the world begins to respond to the person who has something real to offer. And the wealthy, they offer clarity, courage, competence, and consistency. They walk into a room and shift it without raising their voice. They speak less and do more. They deliver more than they promise. And when they win, they don't shout, they simply rise. That's wealth. Quiet, earned, and unstoppable. Let's talk about rejection. The man or woman on the path to riches must learn to be rejected and remain unmoved. This is non-negotiable, because when you do something different, when you break from the herd, you will be misunderstood. People will question your methods, your timing, your silence. You'll be called arrogant for believing in yourself. You'll be labeled antisocial for choosing growth over gatherings. But none of it matters. What matters is that you keep moving. That you remember, rejection is not a reflection of your value, it's a test of your direction. The successful are not people who avoided criticism, they are people who kept building through it, through the sarcasm, through the side eyes, through the silence. Because they knew something others didn't, one day the same people who dismissed them would study them, and that moment, that quiet reversal of respect, is worth every ounce of temporary misunderstanding. You'll also notice this. Those who rise with discipline in one hand and time in the other. They don't waste time trying to change others. They change themselves, and through that change they become a mirror that either inspires or intimidates. Most people avoid this version of themselves because it requires responsibility. But the rich, they run toward it. They embrace the solitude that self-development requires. They train their mind like an athlete trains his body, not for applause but for readiness. Readiness to spot an opportunity. Readiness to execute when the moment appears. Readiness to multiply what others would have wasted. And while the world calls that too much, the wealthy call it just enough. Just enough edge. Just enough preparation. Just enough awareness to win while others are waiting. Now let me speak to a deeper truth. The wealth you're building isn't only about money. It's about alignment with your highest self. It's about becoming the kind of person who doesn't betray their future with short-term emotion. It's about looking in the mirror and knowing that you are becoming someone worthy of trust. Because that's what real wealth gives you. Trust in your own word, clarity in your own vision, control over your own time. And when you live that way on purpose, by design, in truth, you become rare. And the world always rewards what is rare. That is why wealth flows to those who earn it inwardly first. Because it is not just about market value, it's about personal value. And when your personal value increases, your financial value tends to follow. That's not luck, that's law. If you want to rise, you must make peace with the climb. The climb is long, it is quiet, it is often uncelebrated. But it is the climb that builds the man, not the arrival. The climb is where your standards are tested, where your patience is stretched, where your vision is forged in the heat of repetition. And while others jump from path to path looking for easier terrain, you must stay the course, because the ones who succeed are rarely the fastest. They are the most committed. They are the ones who show up when it's cold, who build when it's dark, who grind when it's thankless. And if you can do that, if you can keep moving without applause, without validation, without certainty, you will be among the few who one day arrive and say, "I was built for this." There is a lie you must unlearn, that you need motivation to act. You don't. You need a decision that this is who you are now, that you are done negotiating with average, that you are done living by mood, that you are done drifting in the waters of convenience. Motivation is a mood. Decision is a force. And when you decide, truly decide that you are done pretending, done waiting, done hoping, your life begins to change. Not through magic, but through motion. You stop needing to be reminded, you stop needing to be watched, you become your own coach, your own guide, your own standard. And from that point on, you move differently. Not recklessly, but relentlessly. And that energy, that edge, becomes unmistakable. If you've listened this far, you're not normal. You've already proven that you are not just interested, you are invested. And that investment must now become motion. You cannot go back to living the way you did before this message began. You've seen the blueprint, you felt the shift. Now your responsibility is to act. Not tomorrow, not when it's easy. Now. Write the vision, block the hour, cut the noise, begin the build, and understand this. Every step you take from here on, every repetition, every decision, is forming not just your finances, but your future self. And if you honor that self, if you show up like the version of you who's already wealthy, already disciplined, already free, then the outcome is already written. They'll call you crazy now, but soon they'll call you something else. Wealthy, unstoppable, undeniable. You can always recognize someone who's going to be rich by the way they carry themselves before the money arrives. It's not the car they drive, it's not the clothes they wear, it's the way they move intentionally. It's the way they speak decisively. It's the way they operate with standards that don't bend under pressure. You'll notice they keep their circle tight, their time guarded, their energy focused. They're not trying to be everywhere, please everyone, or prove anything. They're building, and builders move different. While others chase attention, they chase execution. While others live for the weekend, they live for the long game. And here's the part the world doesn't understand. Before you see the wealth in their bank account, you'll see it in their routine. Before the money shows up in numbers, it shows up in patterns. Patterns of focus, patterns of consistency, patterns of unwavering discipline that say, I already know where I'm going. The average person spends their time reacting to messages, to moods, to environments. But the wealthy? They respond, they pause, they decide, because they've mastered the space between stimulus and response, and in that space they've installed systems that make decisions automatic, habits that move them forward, even on days they don't feel like it. This is where most people break. They wait to feel ready. But readiness is not a feeling, it's a system built on standards. You don't become wealthy by waking up in a good mood, you become wealthy by waking up with a plan so ingrained that it overrides your excuses. That kind of system doesn't come from inspiration, it comes from iteration. You build it through repetition, correction, refinement, and once it's built, it liberates you. It frees your mind from decision fatigue and leaves all your energy for action. That is how wealth is built, one automatic right choice at a time. Write this down. Simplicity is the hidden language of wealth. The rich are not obsessed with complexity. They're obsessed with clarity. They don't need to know everything. They need to know the right thing. They don't move in 20 directions, they move in one. They don't chase every trend, they dominate a few timeless principles. Simplicity gives you speed. Simplicity gives you power. When your priorities are clear, your energy is sharp. When your calendar reflects your goals, your days produce results. While the average spend time planning someday, the wealthy live their systems today. And this simplicity isn't accidental. It's engineered, ruthlessly. They say no more often. They remove distractions quickly. They automate what can be automated, delegate what should be delegated, and eliminate what isn't aligned. That's not harsh. That's how you win. The rich are often misunderstood as lucky, but luck in most cases is just compound consistency meeting a rare opportunity, and only the prepared get to keep what others call luck. You don't need to chase luck, you need to become the kind of person who can multiply it when it arrives. That means training yourself to handle more. More pressure, more decisions, more focus, more responsibility. If you can't manage what you have now, you won't hold what you want next. And the person destined for wealth understands this. They work while it's quiet so they can lead when it's loud. They build capacity while others build excuses. They increase their standards when others are lowering theirs. And when the opportunity comes, and it always does, they don't freeze, they rise. Not because of arrogance, but because of readiness. We need to address something that poisons potential silently: distraction. The average life is being eroded by passive consumption, hours lost in the scroll, energy wasted in arguments, focus broken by noise. But the wealthy, they treat attention like money. They invest it, they track it, they protect it, because they know whatever consumes your attention controls your direction. And if you don't control your attention, someone else will. The one who will be rich learns to starve their distractions and feed their focus. They build environments that support discipline. They create space for thinking. They remove low-frequency inputs that don't match the high-level results they're chasing. And most importantly, they treat their mind like the headquarters of their empire, clean, organized, and protected from mental clutter. This is why they think clearer, move faster, decide better. Because while the world is busy being distracted, they're busy becoming dangerous. Another principle most people miss. Rich people think in terms of leverage, time leverage, skill leverage, network leverage. They don't do everything themselves. They multiply themselves. They use money to buy back time. They use systems to scale results. They use relationships to accelerate progress. And while the average think that doing everything alone is noble, the wealthy think that building something bigger than themselves is necessary. If you want to become rich, start thinking in terms of scale. Ask yourself, how can this reach more people without costing more time? How can I build something once that pays me forever? How can I create systems that work when I'm sleeping? That shift from labor to leverage is where exponential growth begins. And that shift doesn't require more effort. It requires more elevation in how you think. Now let's get personal. One of the most painful but powerful truths you'll ever face is this: the old version of you cannot come with you into your wealthy life. That means certain habits must die, certain excuses must end, certain relationships must be released. You cannot rise and remain. You cannot evolve and cling. There is a price for transformation, and the price is usually comfort. But comfort is a thief. It will rob you of every extraordinary outcome and leave you applauding average. You must be willing to walk away from anything that weakens your future. That includes the parts of yourself that have become familiar but are no longer fruitful. You are not obligated to carry yesterday into tomorrow. And the person who becomes rich doesn't just change what they do, they change what they tolerate. They change what they believe they deserve. And they change what they identify with. That is how you rise, not just in income, but in identity. Let me leave you with this. Wealth is not a destination, it's a reflection. It reflects how you think, how you act, how you handle responsibility, how you delay gratification, how you align with discipline. If you want the reflection to change, the inputs must change, and that change begins now. Not when you feel ready, not when the stars align, but the moment you decide to step fully into the identity of the person who's already free, already focused, already powerful. The money, the lifestyle, the success, it all comes after. First you become, then you receive. And if you can hold that truth longer than most are willing to, if you can walk through the seasons of doubt, distraction, and delay with your eyes on the future, then the question is no longer if you'll get rich, it's simply when. They'll call you crazy until it happens. Then they'll call you a genius, but by then you'll be too focused to care. There is a silent decision that every future millionaire makes long before the world ever sees a dollar in their bank account. It's not shouted from the rooftops, it's not shared with friends, it's not posted online. It's made quietly, internally, with full conviction. I will never return to the life I've outgrown. That decision becomes a line in the sand. On one side is the person they used to be, the one who tolerated distraction, negotiated with laziness, and waited for conditions to be perfect. On the other side is who they are becoming, disciplined, deliberate, detached from opinion, obsessed with growth. And once this internal split occurs, their life begins to reorganize itself around that new identity. Habits shift, standards rise, tolerance drops, and while others are still watching, still doubting, still talking, the future millionaire is already building, already multiplying, already evolving. Because when you're truly done with average, it shows up in how you move. You stop proving and start producing. You stop announcing and start becoming. The average seek validation, the wealthy seek verification. One is emotional, the other is empirical. The average want to be told they're doing great. The wealthy look at the numbers. They look at the results. They track, they test, they adapt, because they understand a principle that separates the rich from the reactive. Feelings are not facts. Emotion is not evidence. Results are reality. You cannot manifest wealth with delusion. You build it with data. How many hours did you invest this week? What did your attention go toward? What systems moved you forward? What patterns drained your momentum? The wealthy are not casual about performance. They study it, not to punish themselves, but to adjust with precision. And that precision, repeated long enough, produces predictability. That's how they win, not through fantasy, but through feedback. They use every result, good or bad, as a mirror, and they ask the hard question, what does this result say about who I've been? Then they upgrade, ruthlessly. Another trait you'll find in those destined for wealth. They don't crave excitement, they crave elevation. Excitement is emotional. Elevation is strategic. The rich don't need fireworks to stay engaged. They need outcomes. That's why they fall in love with the process. Not the event, not the applause. The process. The long, sometimes dull, always demanding path of mastery. They track progress like a scientist. They tweak, test, and refine. And over time, their results become so consistent, so repeatable, so scalable, that the world calls them lucky. But it wasn't luck. It was obsession with process. While others got bored and quit, they got bored and refined. While others chased novelty, they chased mastery. And mastery, unlike motivation, never fades. It compounds, it sharpens, it protects you from burnout, because it roots you in purpose, not impulse. That is why the wealthy keep rising long after others flatline. They are grounded in something deeper than hype. Let's now address the invisible enemy that keeps most people broke: emotional entitlement. The belief that hard work deserves immediate reward, that discipline deserves applause, that trying is enough. But life doesn't pay you for effort, it pays you for effectiveness. And effectiveness is measured in results. The individual who becomes wealthy removes emotional timelines from their goals. They stop saying, I should have made it by now. They stop comparing their pace to someone else's. They stop resenting the silence. Instead, they say, I'll earn it no matter how long it takes. That mentality is lethal, because it removes the ticking clock that causes so many to give up right before the breakthrough. The wealthy are not in a rush, they're in rhythm. They don't need overnight results because they've built lifelong commitment, and that commitment becomes their edge. While others chase dopamine, they chase dominance. There's a moment in every journey to wealth when you realize the game is no longer about making money, it's about becoming someone who can't not make money. That shift is subtle but permanent. It means you've installed skills so deeply that they operate on autopilot. You've trained your instincts to spot opportunity without force. You've built systems that run without your panic, and from that point forward, wealth is no longer a goal, it's a byproduct, a result of who you've become. And who you've become can't go back, because your standards won't allow it. Your awareness won't tolerate it. Your identity won't fit in the life you once lived. And that's the real flex. Not how much you have, but how impossible it is to regress. That kind of transformation can't be faked. It can't be borrowed. It must be earned in the dark, in the silence, in the moments when no one is watching. Now let me give you a truth that may sting. If you're still trying to convince others that you'll be successful, you're not ready. Because the man or woman who is truly becoming wealthy no longer needs agreement. They've graduated from the need to be believed. They've moved past the need to be understood. Their focus is too precious to be wasted on persuasion. Their energy is too disciplined to be scattered on debate. The rich don't argue about what's possible, they prove it, quietly, consistently, irrefutably. And if you're serious about wealth, you'll reach this place too. A place where you no longer explain yourself, you simply build, you simply execute, you simply arrive. Years later with results that make everyone forget they ever doubted you. That's the beauty of the game. The silence today becomes the echo tomorrow. And when it echoes, it won't sound like noise, it will sound like proof. One final truth. Wealth is not just earned, it's protected. And the most dangerous threat to your future isn't failure, it's comfort. Because comfort is clever. It whispers, you've done enough. It offers softness when you need strength. It rewards you prematurely, then weakens you subtly. The rich know this. That's why they train even when they've won. They study even when they've earned. They refine even when they're respected. Because they understand that the game doesn't end. It evolves. And if you stop evolving, you start decaying. That's the rule. The price of staying rich is staying sharp, staying humble, staying hungry, and most importantly, staying in motion, forward, focused, forged by discipline, not dulled by ease. That's how you protect the wealth you build, by refusing to settle once you arrive. So ask yourself right now, have you really committed to never going back? Have you installed the kind of standards that would make the old you uncomfortable? Have you built a routine so rooted in your future that even a bad day can't shake it? If not, now is the time. Not tomorrow, not when things feel better, now, because the decision you make today becomes the identity you wake up with tomorrow. And if you choose right, if you choose power over passivity, ownership over excuse, process over pleasure, then the rest will take care of itself. The people who once called you crazy, they'll get quiet. The people who watched you grind, they'll start asking questions. And the people who doubted, they'll be too late. But none of that will matter, because by then you'll be rich, not just in money, but in freedom, identity, and control. And that is what you came for. There is a stage in every wealth journey where silence becomes your loudest strategy. It's the moment when you stop needing to be seen and start being dangerous in private. You don't need to talk about your goals anymore. You've become them. You don't post your schedule, you live it. You don't explain your absence, you use it. This stage is quiet, and because of that, most people miss it. They confuse movement with progress, volume with power, and visibility with momentum. But the one who is truly on their way to riches knows better. They know that power doesn't always announce itself. It compounds in the dark. It sharpens behind closed doors. It multiplies when no one is watching. And then one day it emerges, not with a whisper, not with a roar, but with results so undeniable that people stop talking and start observing. That is when silence turns into legacy. That is when you become untouchable. There's a difference between hiding and building. The average hide when it's hard. The rich build when it's hard. They use adversity as leverage. They use pressure as focus. They use discomfort as proof that something valuable is happening. And while others shrink at challenge, the rich lean in, not because they enjoy suffering, but because they respect what it produces. Hard seasons are mirrors. They show you what you believe. They reveal what you've trained. They expose your standards. And if you face them fully, without denial, without excuse, you become a new version of yourself. One who no longer needs ease to be excellent. One who no longer needs applause to be disciplined. One who no longer breaks at resistance. That's why the wealthy don't fear pressure. They prepare for it. And when it comes, they perform. Calmly, sharply, strategically. Write this down. Pressure doesn't break the rich, it breaks the illusion of the weak. Because when you're really committed, pressure doesn't scare you, it selects you. It's how life tests your worthiness for the wealth you claim to want. It asks, will you fold or will you fortify? And the wealthy answer not with words, but with motion. They keep building, they keep refining, they keep showing up. That's how you win, not through grand moments of motivation, but through thousands of micro decisions no one ever sees. You're either moving toward your future or away from it, and the wealthy do not retreat. They adapt, they recalibrate, they remain relentless, because wealth doesn't respond to moods, it responds to patterns. And your patterns are either preparing you for the life you say you want, or protecting the life you say you're done with. Choose wisely. Let's now talk about certainty. The rich live from it. The average seek it. The average need guarantees before they act. The wealthy act until they create guarantees. They move first. They bet on themselves. They initiate. And because of that, they gain what others wait for: momentum, access, positioning, leverage. Certainty is not given. It is forged through bold action repeated consistently. The man who walks in certainty is not arrogant. He is informed. Informed by repetition, by failure, by correction, by time. And that certainty is magnetic. It draws capital. It draws respect. It draws loyalty. Not because of charisma, but because of conviction. When you move like you know where you're going, the world steps aside. But that kind of movement only comes from one place: doing the work when no one's clapping. Here's a question that will change your trajectory. Do you live in reaction or in design? The average live reactively. They respond to bills, to opinions, to moods, to trends. The rich live by design. They design their mornings. They design their investments. They design their outcomes. This is why their life compounds, because it's built with intention, not impulse. Every minute is allocated. Every dollar is tracked. Every environment is curated, not out of obsession, but out of alignment. Because when you live by design, you remove friction, you eliminate decision fatigue, you give yourself the best possible chance of executing at a high level consistently. That's not extreme, that's efficient. The rich don't waste energy on what doesn't move the needle. They reserve their bandwidth for what multiplies, and that's why they scale faster, smoother, and more sustainably. There's something else you must accept. If you're going to rise, you will outgrow people. Not because you think you're better, but because your habits no longer match theirs. Growth will cost you familiarity. It will cost you comfort. It will cost you access to conversations that no longer feed your future. And that is a cost you must be willing to pay, because wealth is not just about what you gain, it's about what you're willing to release. Some people are attached to your old identity. They know the version of you that was inconsistent, unsure, uncommitted, and as you rise, they'll try to remind you of who you were, not out of malice, but out of discomfort. You must let them go, not with anger, but with clarity. You cannot drag your past into your future and expect to fly. Let go, elevate, repeat. Now let's reframe something powerful. Being underestimated is an advantage. When people don't see you coming, you're free to build without noise. You're free to rise without resistance. You're free to study, to strategize, to sharpen. The wealthy don't mind being overlooked. They use it. They operate under the radar until it's too late for the world to catch up. And when they emerge, it's already done. The results are already there. The systems are already installed. The momentum is already built. That's why you must stop seeking recognition and start seeking refinement. Recognition is temporary. Refinement is transferable. And when you're refined, you can walk into any room, any season, any industry, and dominate quietly, consistently, permanently. You've come too far to stop here. This is the chapter where most people quit, right before the tide turns, right before the opportunity lands, right before the results appear. But you're not most people. You've been trained, you've been tested, and now you must be trusted. Trusted to keep moving when it's dark. Trusted to keep executing when it's thankless. Trusted to lead yourself until the world realizes you're already ahead. They called you crazy. Let them. They laughed. Let them. They disappeared. Good. Let silence be your witness. Let results be your rebuttal. Let your wealth speak for you. Because when it does, it won't whisper. It will echo. And those who once mocked will say, I always knew. But you'll know the truth. You didn't do it for them. You did it for the person you knew you could become. And now, that person is no longer a dream. That person is real. There comes a moment in the life of every future millionaire when they realize that wealth is no longer about proving others wrong. It's about proving yourself right. The noise from the outside world begins to fade. The opinions that once triggered you begin to lose their power. The urge to defend, to explain, to convince, it dissolves. Because you've reached a point where the only validation you crave is execution. The only confirmation you need is motion. You are no longer playing to be seen. You are playing to win. And winning for you is not defined by applause. It is defined by alignment. Am I building what I said I would build? Am I living the life I used to only imagine? Am I walking like the version of me I saw in my darkest hours when no one else believed but me? That is the new scorecard. That is the new mission. And when you reach this level of internal clarity, the game changes. You don't just grow, you ascend. What most people never understand is that money is not the end goal. It is a tool for amplification. It amplifies who you already are. If you're focused, it enhances your reach. If you're scattered, it multiplies your chaos. If you're intentional, it scales your purpose. If you're impulsive, it accelerates your collapse. This is why the wealthy work on themselves first. They understand that a weak identity cannot sustain a strong income. They know that mindset precedes money, that if the foundation is cracked, the empire will fall. So they spend the early years sharpening the internal habits, thoughts, standards, systems, until the external must catch up. This is not philosophy, this is strategy. The man who becomes rich is the man who first becomes stable, not flashy, not loud, but unshakable. And that kind of stability does not come from the world, it comes from within. Here's the truth about wealth. It is built by design, not by default. No one stumbles into a fortune. No one casually manifests millions. It is mapped, structured, engineered, and that engineering requires thinking time, something most people never invest in. The wealthy set time aside to think, not react, not scroll, not compare. Think. They ask higher questions. How can I scale this? How can I delegate this? What's draining my energy? What's producing a disproportionate return? These questions direct their focus, refine their systems, and sharpen their execution. The average chase productivity. The wealthy chase clarity, because clarity creates precision, and precision creates leverage, and leverage compounded over time is what prints wealth. Not hustle, not chaos, not being busy. Precision. That is the game. Now let's expose a lie, that you have time. You don't. Time is not promised. Opportunity does not knock twice. In the life you say you want, it's slipping away every day you spend negotiating with comfort. The wealthy feel the weight of time differently. They act with urgency, not anxiety. They don't rush, but they don't stall either. They understand that someday is a myth, that perfect timing is an illusion. So they begin. They begin when it's awkward. They begin when it's inconvenient. They begin when no one understands, because they know that mastery doesn't require permission. It requires motion. Every single wealthy person you admire has this in common. They began, not perfectly, but fully. They burned the boats. They removed the escape routes. They made the future non-optional, and that internal finality is what gave them the power to follow through when everyone else flinched. If you want to rise, you must eliminate everything in your life that whispers maybe. The average drown in maybe. Maybe I'll start. Maybe I'll try. Maybe it'll work. The wealthy don't operate from maybe. They operate from must. I must do this. I must become that. I must complete this. They remove plan B. They remove soft language. They remove internal negotiation. And because of that, their focus becomes a weapon. Their attention becomes sacred. Their energy becomes untouchable. They don't start and stop. They start and scale. They don't dabble. They dominate. And that domination doesn't come from force. It comes from decision. A decision so final that all action flows from it. No friction, no second guessing, just alignment, every single day. You'll also notice something strange happens as you level up. Your life starts to get quieter, not lonelier, quieter. The noise of drama fades. The pull of distraction weakens. The need to respond disappears, because you're no longer wired for chaos. You're wired for clarity, and that clarity rewires everything. You begin to protect your mornings. You begin to master your inputs. You begin to treat peace like a profit center. The person who becomes wealthy understands this. The quieter your life, the louder your vision becomes. And in that quiet, strategy is born, not from reaction, but from reflection. Not from frenzy, but from focus. That's where the real game is played. Not in the spotlight, in the silence. Here's another brutal truth. You will be tested the moment you begin acting like your future self. Not before or after. Once you commit, life will push back. Circumstances will tighten. Doubt will whisper louder. People will question you more. This isn't sabotage, it's qualification. It's the universe asking, do you really want this? And how you respond determines everything. Most shrink. They revert. They question the decision. But the wealthy, they double down. They say, now I know I'm on the right path, because the resistance proves the route. The pushback confirms the progress. And once you learn to read resistance as revelation, nothing can stop you. You move through setbacks like stepping stones. You walk through storms with dry eyes, and you emerge not just wealthier, but wiser, quieter, clearer, and far more dangerous than when you began. Let me make this simple. You are either becoming undeniable, or you are becoming forgettable. There is no neutral in this game. You are either compounding or decaying. You are either installing systems or installing excuses. And if you've made it this far, if you've truly absorbed what's been said, then you already know what side of that line you belong on. Now it's time to walk it. Not with hype, with honor, not with urgency, with precision. This is not about being motivated, it's about being mature. Wealth is maturity, it is responsibility, it is delayed gratification weaponized by vision, and that vision, if you've held it this long, deserves to be built without apology. So stop looking back, stop reaching for agreement, stop checking if the world approves, decide who you are and build from there. The money will come, the world will adjust, but most importantly, you'll never need to explain again, because your life will speak for you.